Great Spirit, I send my voice your way, oh, your way, oh, way, your way, oh, higher, your way, oh, higher, your oh, hey, 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 your way. In the moon of popping trees, when I was only 9, the voices called me from the clouds. The thunder spoke my name. 2 men of lightning slanted down, spears flashing in their hands. Hurry, child, your grandfathers waving the rainbow's flaming land. 6 grandfathers, powers of the world, sacred hoop, the flowering tree. Make the nation live free. Make the nation live again. Live again. The vision true, the people's prayer. Their horse turned and they to the 4 quarters of the sky. 12 black horses thundering west where the storm clouds lie. White geese north with blizzard mane. Sorrel east night born in light. Buckskin south with horns of power. All the horses dance that night. 6 grandfathers, powers of the world, sacred hoop, the flowering tree. Make the nation live free. They gave the cup of living water, the bow that turns to spear. I rode the storm and struck the blue man, tried and fear disappeared. Rain fell sweet, the grasses rose, holy trees stood tall and green. In the center of the nation's hoop, the people's heart is seen. Red road good, black road hard, Horus says I walk along ghosts of grandfathers, trail behind like morning mist and smoke. 100 shall be sacred, 100 shall be flame. The trees still bloom, the circle holds, dreamers down the grandfathers. Hear me now, west and north, east and south, sky and mother resound with visible face. I am appealing, grinning like the blessedness I made. Your way, your way, your way, your way, your way, your way, your way. Headed through a love, grandfather, great spirit. I have seen, and I remember the pipe is lit, the circle lives, silence is broken, the old lie is falling. 6 grandfathers, powers of the world, sacred hoop, the flowering tree. Make the nation live free. 6 grandfathers, powers of the world, 6 grandfathers, powers of the world, sacred hoop, the flowering tree. Make the nation live free. Make the nation live free. Make the nation live free.
Hello.
I was muted and I was saying hello and welcome to the Roundtable Chronicles episode 22. We have Chris with us tonight. Thank you, Chris, for showing up. And Vince, I'm not sure you're going to have Rick Osmond or Jason Huffman, Shaman 711. I'm not sure they're coming. So, but I'm sure we'll have lots of material to show you tonight. And Vince is always ready, so we just let him loose and he'll fill the show. So how are you, Chris?
Excellent. So glad to be here. Thank you so much. Vince, nice to see you. Hi, Ricardo.
Hi.
Hi, nice to see you. Thanks for coming and happy to be here.
Sure. So just as usual, I just want to remember everybody, tomorrow at 1 Eastern, you'll have another live of the Sweet Sunday News by the Universe Unveiled. by Jacqueline and Sarah. And don't forget, all the subjects we talk here and much, much more you can find on Lost America on Patreon. So it's Patreon Lost America, and you can find lots of episodes there with lots of information that we speak here, but told by the people that actually researched this for many, many years. A very few of them, like 1, 2, or 3 of those people that are in there, I was privileged to speak with them, and I can vouch that their knowledge is solid and based on evidence, or contrary to what some people might want to say. So, but we have been showing that over and over again on this show. This is already episode 22, so you have a lot to see and to listen to what we have been shown as the lies of the American history that we've been told. Vince, what do you have for us today?
Okay, I wanted to bring up this red bear effigy, and this is an example of the Mount Pishka relics, and this is one at the Smithsonian. So this week I had some exciting discoveries that relate to this, but I want to just dig in here and focus on this red bear effigy. So this is a key piece in the history of the Mount Pishka site, and as we go through, I'll show details and we'll talk about each area. So I guess I'll start by zooming in over here. So the red bear effigy, the question is whether it's talc, steatite, soapstone, or potstone, and material terminology and interpretation of the Mount Pishka Garden Creek corpus at Haywood County, North Carolina. So this is the picture of the actual artifact at the Smithsonian. It was found at Mount Pishka. My dog is squeaking. Sorry, just a second. All right, can you just mute me for a second? I'll let my dog go.
You are muted, Chris. I can't hear you. You are muted.
Do you have a dog, Ricardo?
Yes, I have a she dog. Yes, Laura, and she's a bit autistic, so she thinks that growling and showing her teeth is like showing affection. So people are scared of her, but she's actually very sweet.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Yeah, my dog just wanted some attention, I guess. So, so this red bear effigy is a seated bear is a classic Mount Pishka Garden Creek figurine. It is finely carved from soft, talc-rich stone and features incised linear and cross-hatched designs. So it has linear incised decorations in a seated form, and as you can see here, it is holding onto this tablet or altar, as it may be, and color and patina. It has a reddish brown to dark brown, lighter yellowish incised lines and natural wear. It has a sticker on it that says either Cyrus Thomas or Emmert. I think it might say Thomas. It's hard to tell in this picture, but it's about 5 centimeters across and 10 or so centimeters high. The material context is important because the area of Mount Pishka, these are the terms used to describe a continuum. The rocks come from talc, and then they're changed to steatite, and then soapstone or potstone are the artifacts after the carving is done. So talc is a mineral. It's very soft, Mohs hardness of 1, soapy feel, perfect basal cleavage. It's a non-porous stone. Steatite rock is a talc-rich metamorphic rock. 75% talc with magnesium silicate is what steatite typically has.
So what are you saying, Vince? Is that we don't even know what the material it is made?
Right, we don't even know that. It's never been tested. They won't allow testing.
How is it possible? It's been in a museum for decades.
Right, it's been there since 1883, and that's part of the reason it needs tested. And we particularly asked, can we test this object? We want to determine its mineralogy. They would not allow it. And
I
this is a
don't.
key figure. I'll get to the reason why. But it's cross-hatching. It's incised lines are really important. Um, but what happens is they take talc and they heat it. When talc is carved, it's got a hardness of 2 to 2.5, and then they heat it up, and it becomes a 6 on the Mohs hardness scale. Steatite, they heat it, and then it becomes reddish brown. It's normally heat resistant, which is why they use it for cooking vessels. It has a smooth, soapy feel. The typical color is reddish brown and gray, but when it's heated up, it goes from a hardness of 1 to 2, all the way up to a 5.5 or 6 on the Mohs hardness scale. And they heat it in a fire. And this particular type of material is used a lot it was used at Poverty Point and in Georgia, Savannah River. They use it with stones for cooking. And the reason why soapstone was the working term and potstone is they said by August 1880, the material was described as 2 kinds of soapstone, lead colored or yellowish, plus a third soft yellow and black streaked like earth material. And the reason why this is important is in 1883, a bear-like figurine at the Smithsonian, which is probably this one, was described as being bright and fresh-looking and used in authenticity arguments. So the small collection included a bear and other animal, which was called imitation by critics. Later summaries show the bear figures were a repeated category within the broader Smithsonian dispute. The bear effigy is being examined in relation to the talc steatite soapstone material and the Mount Pishka Garden Creek corpus. So they got this, apparently. They wrote about it in 1883, and they said it was they basically said it was an imitation bear. And
What is an imitation bear? Not real? What do they mean?
yeah, so this is what the thing is. It needs to be tested, and they need to determine if it's steatite or if it's N-statite. If it's been converted from talc to N-statite, that means it's heated up above 900 C and possibly even 1,000 C to get
Okay,
to
but
N-statite.
could that have happened in the fire, or were they protected on the fire?
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's so many of these bears. There's literally like 98 bears from the Mount Pishka site. They all have the same type of patina and dark red ochre or yellow and black coloration. There's evidence that they were in a fire. So they were taken out of context with ashes, and they were pulled out of this mound. And well, when Emmert showed up, he said he had people immerse these in water, in ferruginous iron tinted water, to try to make them look antique. But the issue is that wouldn't do it. That wouldn't make them have this fire patina on them and convert the mineral to N-statite. So yeah, they wouldn't let us test it. This one in particular, it's documented in the letters. So the letters are really exciting. There's over 210 letters from the Osborne letters, which I've translated now into English. They were written in calligraphy, and now I have like 780 pages of letters from these guys that wrote about this stuff. And so this bear was critical because it was used in the controversy to say that, well, the bear must be imitation. They called it an imitation bear.
So someone wrote more than 700 pages over an imitation?
Not just this bear, but all the artifacts they found.
But
The
wouldn't
letters
if they put it to the fire to make it harder, wouldn't they polish it after and take the black out of it?
Well, the thing is, I don't know the whole provenance history, but what I think happened is these were like burnt offerings, so they would carve them and then bake them. I think they bake them in a kiln, which hardens them up, And then after that, then I think it was brought and wrapped in bearskin and pearls and made into a totem, like an effigy that represented their clan. And so this would have been like a living. This would have been like a bear covered with pearls and fur.
Yeah,
And what's left is after the fire happened, it burned the fur off and the pearls fell off, and then this is what was inside.
okay, that was what I was asking. So this could be from the fire from the Soto, and not from the fire when it was hardened, if it was hardened.
Right, but I think it was fired more than once. Like the first time when they manufactured it, and then the second time was DeSoto. And there's pretty good evidence that the stones were fired more than once. Because when the conservator looked at it at the Valentine Museum, that they said it looks like it had like red ochre and charcoal, and they did a swab and some of the charcoal came off, or the substance, and it smelled sooty and smoky.
Well, if you can take the particles of the black just by swabbing it, then it has to be recent. It's not a. When I mean recent, it's the last thing that happened to it.
Right. Yeah, the last thing that happened to it would have been the fire when it was burnt in the mountain. They pulled it out of the ashes. Basically, there was charcoal all over the mound, and it was in the charcoal. This is an internal, like, Earth Lodge mound.
And it's just how this has been happening in lots of your research, Vince, is that museums have pieces and they don't want to know what they are, right? Some of them are not even seeing the day of the exhibition. They are kept on the basements. But what is the purpose of having a museum that doesn't know what it's holding?
Yeah, they didn't even know this was in the collection until I brought it to their attention.
It's just ridiculous. It's just okay. Those mistakes can happen. Oh, we didn't know where it is, but as soon as we do, we want to know everything about it, right?
Yeah, you'd think they would want to know everything about it, but they actually declined to test it, which is the really shocking thing, and it's pretty amazing that they wouldn't test it, because you think they would want to know at least what material it is.
Because you actually hold this one, right? Or a similar one when you went there.
Yeah, I have pictures. This is the picture of it from the Smithsonian, and we saw the other ones at the Valentine that were pretty much identical to this.
Identical, yeah. Yeah, you've been on the Valentine, not on the Smithsonian. Yeah.
Right. Well, I've been to the Smithsonian, but not particularly for this. But this is important because this effigy confirms basically the authenticity dispute was not accurate. And this was the first one they said was an imitation bear at the Smithsonian in 1883. They acquired it, and they said it's an imitation bear. And it's like, well, it certainly isn't. It's like amazing, and the detail on it is so precise, and it's just it's strange that they would detract or basically say the whole collection is fake based on this, or an imitation.
So, in the case of the stone, and considering it was burned several times, how would you test it?
Well, so it could be tested by a swab, like just taking a swab and then carbon date if you can get a tiny micro sample of carbon from it. It could be radiocarbon dated. And the other possibility is it could be tested for mineralogy, to determine whether it's end-state with the laser. There's a test that could be done to determine its mineral content with non-destructively, and just it's a device that mineralogists use all the time, and they just shine a laser beam at it, and it tells them automatically what the composition is.
So not invasive.
Right.
I don't even know what to say.
And this is the one that the Cherokee chief said, "Bring the bear." You know, when he was talking about this effigy in front of Congress, he said, "Bring the bear." So this is the bear. I mean, this is the one that the Smithsonian first initiated this controversy about. And so this is, I think, the key artifact in the whole corpus of Mount Pishka. If this could be proven that it's indeed an ancient steatite or enstatite piece by doing non-invasive testing, that would prove the whole collection is real.
The problem is this one is on the Smithsonian.
Yeah, this one's at the Smithsonian. They called it fake. They said it's a fresh-looking modern imitation.
Okay, do they want to give us this fake one since it has no worth? We'll take it.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing too. In 1963, the chief of the Smithsonian, the chief curator, wrote a letter, and he said he will not let anyone get rid of or sell or study the artifacts at the Valentine because they don't want anybody asking questions about the decision that these were all imitations. So he wrote a letter to the Valentine Museum. The Valentine Museum said, "Hey, we think that we have a difference of opinion here. That we think that these are authentic. There's a lot of our staff and board members who want to do some testing and study these." And the Smithsonian wrote back and said, "You can't do that. Our directive is they wouldn't let it be studied. They wouldn't let anyone do any testing or sell the object."
So either you or Chris know of any legal way that this can be opposed? Because is this interest public interest? Is this science interest? Is there any way to go around? Because I know the Smithsonian doesn't acknowledge not even the American government. So I'm not sure how it can be opposed in any way.
I mean, I think the only thing I know of is to go through NAGPRA and have NAGPRA request it.
Yeah,
like-
but if they get it, they will bury it. Not
Well,
test it.
they could test it possibly at the museum and then report the results. But I think if NAGPRA repatriated it, then yeah, I don't know what would happen.
Yeah, it would be buried.
Yeah.
That's where it was. They want to put it where it was.
Yeah, but I mean, I would rather have it reburied than hidden and not allowed to be studied,
Sure.
because it would at least be respectful to the people that made it.
Yeah. Yeah, saying it's a fake, it's not respectful.
Right. That's like a sacrilege or desecration of the culture to say it's fake without studying it.
And how about that claim that all of this is Cherokee? Did we get any evidence to bypass that?
The claim about what?
That this is all Cherokee. You had this discussion with
Oh. Yeah, as far as it being Cherokee, I mean, there's good evidence that some of the artifacts have Cherokee writing on them, but that's exceptional. That's only one that looks like it has Cherokee writing, and it says the Immortals on it.
That's the snake head, right?
Yeah, the snake head with teeth.
And that writing, you think it's Cherokee?
Yes, I think so. So yeah, that's possible, but I think that these are older than that, because the bear is a clan symbol, and it's it's a clan symbol of the Muskogee, the Creek, and the Yuchi, and also the Anishinaabe and Osage all share that clan symbol.
And the Ho-Chunk also have the bear.
Yeah. So yeah,
It's
I mean,
too-
I think
it's probably found too south to be Ho-Chunk, but they also have the bear.
right. So I think it's clearly a clan symbol. The engravings and the cross hatching show the importance of it, and the fact that it has all this patina means, it could be very valuable to test it, determine what the age and material is.
Well, although probably will give us the age of the Soto burning, right? That's the most
Well,
likely.
likely it would, but it's possible it could give us a date of 2,000 years ago, because there was some mixed dates that Alice Wright, the archaeologist, reported. Some of them were from around 2,000 years ago, and the others were from the Soto era. Those were radiocarbon dates.
That they deny also?
Well, the funny thing is, Alice Wright reported this date from the De Soto era, and then she said it was after De Soto. So she actually didn't, she said she recalibrated the date, even though it was De Soto era, she recalibrated to after De Soto. So
Just
instead
because.
of 1543, she changes to 1566.
It's it's just it fits much better. So, no one has to rewrite anything, which is dumb, because if you have papers and books written about a subject and you gave dates and times and peoples, that's the research that was available at the time. If new evidence comes to light, you can always write a new book. So, but no, I won't contradict what I've written. It's like written in stone, and I don't understand that kind of thought, because to be wrong is a sign that we are moving forward in science, in archaeology, in history, right?
Yeah.
If we're never wrong, then might as well stay with the Earth in the as the center of the universe.
And the earth is flat too, right?
Yes, of course.
Flat earthers. So, yeah, that's really interesting. And I have another slide I wanted to share that is about copper from the mound.
What's so upsetting is that you want archaeologists and historians to revise with new data, versus just ignore the data. And these young ones that have jobs at universities and libraries and stuff, it's like they could incorporate new data, and they choose not to, and it's very disappointing. And the word is they just can't. They can't. They can't deal with the data. It's just unbelievable. It's very disappointing.
Right.
And also, Chris, I think that to the example of that young man that was trying to put the Baraga, the new Baraga Museum that will start this year, down, and the people that were behind him, there was this lady, there was this academic teacher, director of the course. It's not a matter of not wanting to do new data, is a matter of denying the data without even listening to it, right? You read two first words and all wrong. It's all wrong.
Yeah.
And then young people that have to write papers, if they go against it, obviously the same thing that they were doing to the museum and to the ideas that we defend, they would do the same to the student. So the student wouldn't get grades to go through the year. So in that sense, it's kind of a gatekeeping. You have to follow the rules. You have to follow the dates. You have to follow the names. Because if you put new information in, you are scratched. You can't finish your course. Right? So it's a kind of a white blackmail that it's underlined but everybody knows it's there, but no one admits that it's so. Right? Because you can't put a thesis as a final graduation with new ideas. Right? That would be too risky.
Okay, take a look at this copper evidence. So this is from the articles that Osborne wrote. Copper evidence, complete detail. The Osborne-Valentine correspondence. Bottom line: copper is present in the Osborne-Valentine record, but it is sparse, mostly comparative, and only weakly tied to the large Mount Pishka copper assemblage. The strongest references are copper tubes, plate pieces, copper implements, and one copper weight. The strongest negative evidence is the McCombs Peachtree Mound reporting there was no metal found in the mound. So the timeline here, on September 19th, 1879, early regional copper reference. So the Valentine mentioned 150 beads plus copper tubes and plate pieces from graves washed by rivers, meaning regional copper category was recognized early, but not specifically Pishka. And then on October 4th, 1879, copper treated as an expected mound category. Valentine instructs Osborne to keep all stone, copper, and bone objects that appear handmade. He also refers to copper implements, beads, pipes, and axes from a North Carolina mound, meaning copper was anticipated artifact class. And then on April 20th, active search for copper. Valentine says they are particularly anxious to get relics of copper to study how they were made and compare the shapes. And then on April 24th, copper was still expected in shipments. Copper remains part of the anticipated collection stream. On July 16th, actual copper implements were received, but judged rather modern. Important mixed evidence. The existence is real, the antiquity is uncertain. Existence, medium to high, ancient attribution is low to medium. So then on December 1880, he hoped for copper in McCombs Mound, and he said they had already had 3 copper objects from parts of North Carolina, and he hoped others more might turn up. On February 1881, they said no copper was found in McCombs Mound, despite ash, coal, bone, pottery, and shells and post features, skeletons. There was not one piece of metal in the mound. And then on the 1882 to 1883 account, Mrs. Harper found a copper weight. Real copper was a object entry but poorly described and weakly provenance. And then on June 1883, geographic distinction. Valentine notes that they never hear of copper implements being found there, and says that they have some from middle North Carolina, meaning copper belongs more clearly to the broader North Carolina comparison than the strong western or Pishka stream.
Okay, this is very confusing. So was there copper there or not?
So yes, they found this one. This was real copper objects found. The others were comparative evidence or no, they didn't find any. But they reported this at the beginning, that their real regional copper category included these artifacts referenced.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they are saying that there was copper and all of a sudden there was no copper. I don't understand what they mean with that.
Yeah, I think they mean they found it in graves washing out at first. Then they found some in the mound. They received some that they found, and then after that they didn't receive any. They said the best conclusion is the correspondence documents copper as a regional artifact category, including copper tubes, plates, pieces, and implements. However, the letters do not support a large Mount Pishka copper cache. The strongest value of the copper is comparative. It shows collectors were tracking material categories and distinguishing between modern copper and older mound engraved context.
Are these tubes, I don't have Rick here, so Chris, are these tubes of copper the ones that Rick mentioned that we use for long distance communication?
I mean, it looks like one, right, Vince? That one, just the one.
Yeah, the tube.
Yeah. I told that to a historian and archaeologist that those were tubes, and he was flabbergasted, to say the least. Sight tubes, and it's so clear. But he was about 70 years old. He was a little shocked to hear that.
But capable of accepting it or in denial?
Just quiet. That's literally one of the few things I felt safe to say in front of him. You know, I don't want to jar his whole worldview because they literally don't want to hear it. I mean, you know, some people just don't want to hear. Yeah, obviously.
But they spend a lifetime in history, right? They don't want to hear new things. Well, you have Jim Shears. He's probably 90, and he still wants to learn new things every single day. He still carries around his pen and his paper. He's always looking for new things. Right? That's the norm, the example, the what I consider to be should be normal, right?
It obviously gets you into a rigid mindset, of conformity in academia, and you have a family and kids, and there's no time for the research that you want to do, and so there are reasons why the dogmas continued. But this 1800s just saying everything's fake, and it was clear in the late 1800s that Creekstone and Pishka. I mean, this was a clear agenda that's very obvious. So they can denounce, the academics and historians now can denounce the wrongdoings of their people. I mean, it's okay.
Right. They don't have to just pass along everything they had as hearsay, and it's literally like ipse dixit. Just because he said it, that means it must be fact. They need to embrace the scientific method, not just repeat what they heard like a parrot.
Exactly. But I think the biggest problem with Mount Pishka is that it is a clear evidence of a site where there was many different tribes coming together. It is clear that it was a site where some kind of spiritual practices were done, and they were done by every single one that goes to that site and plays there and gives their homage. And this is completely against the notion of the butt flap savage that has no understanding of spirituality or any culture or anything, right? So this would be showing that these people were organized. This is like what we would consider to a Christian a cathedral, right? Where everything is welcome and accepted. And that would contradict the idea that, well, we have clear right to occupy this land because these are just savages with no culture, no religion, no
Right.
spirituality, nothing.
Right. This was like literally
A
a
Mecca. This
united.
was a Mecca. This was a Mecca. Like Powers Bluff did. That's the answer that he gave Chris. It's like a Mecca where people come.
Right. This was like a Mecca or United Nations. I mean, it was multiple groups coming together to share their beliefs and religion and symbols. All these are evidence of that. And it's multicultural United Nations or a Mecca of all these cultures combined together. And so I put this slideshow together this week, and it kind of uh, synthesizes the combination of the research about Bangtu and Cahokia and the Chinese expedition and map. There's a map called the Riki map. Well, the Riki map was dated to 1602, and it was the earliest map of the United States and in North America written in Chinese, according to scholars. That this map was written in 1602. It's written in Chinese. It has the different continents identified. It labels America as either New France or the area in. It shows Honduras. It shows Central America, but right where this place is located in North Carolina, it says humped animals. So humped animals is written on there. What are they talking about? So I mean, it's like, is it a camel they're talking about? Are they referring to a bison? But it actually says on the map humped animals over the North Carolina area, written in Chinese. And
Well, they would have humped animals
yeah,
until a few hundred years to a thousand after the Younger Dryas, right? Because there were several kind of I don't know the technical name for camels and dromedaries, but there were a few species in America. So
right. But that's, well, this figurine from the Mount Pishka site is a humped animal apparently, and it has two humps on it, like a camel.
camel.
And so this is kind of the study that I did about it to try to determine what's going on here and compare it with the Feng Tu lead of having humped animals in that area. I looked into the cross hatching, the composite clan symbolism, the llama tutelary. Like this guy by the name of Keen was an archaeologist. He thought it was a llama, but llamas don't have humps on them.
No.
But he said the body proportions are more like a llama than a camel, and so he called it and said it might be misidentified as a llama. So as we go through, I'll show you what I found out about this. And
Does that map makes reference to previous maps? Like this map is a compilation of, like we see in many of the 1500s, 1600s maps.
well, the Riki map was identified as to say Fengtu Law or Fengtu County, which is the name interpreted as Cahokia. I'm not sure if it was a compilation of older maps, but it might well be, because they were continuously passing along knowledge and evidence of the map of the world. And
Peer Erase, for instance, clearly states that this map is a compilation of much older maps that were all grouped up into creation of this one. And other maps also have that information. That's why I was asking. But is it in Chinese or it's not?
yeah, it's written in Chinese.
Written in Chinese. Okay.
Well,
And
yeah.
And the good thing about Chat GPT is it can translate any language into English. And so I used it and translated, and it said it was able to identify the camel, or I mean the humped animal. It said humped animal is in the area. So that's what identified it as an important symbol representing a camel-like figurine or humped animal living there. And the thing is, Keene had identified llama in 1882 in his article from Mount Pishka, and he says the presence of humps identifies the llama or weakens the llama identification, but Keene's point is better used as evidence that early scholars recognized the cameloid-like form and tried to explain it with acceptable categories. So instead of saying it's camel, they said, oh, well, it might be a llama. And then,
Yeah, a llama with two humps.
yeah. So Garden Creek is a verified archaeological and mortuary landscape. The object level authenticity of the individual features remains separate and should be tested. So this one is at the University of North Carolina. And when I wrote them, I asked them specifically, hey, what's your testing on this item? Have you identified it? Because your catalog calls it a fake. And I was like, how did you determine that it's a fake? They updated their catalog in 2017. And I would like to know if you have any data to back that up, or if you're just passing along the earlier message from Rao in 1883 that it's a fake without any evidence. And they haven't responded yet. And it's been more than a week since I sent them an email.
But the thing is, it's not just America, right? In America, we understand because it's the problem with manifest destiny and the culture, and we already talked about this. But in Europe, they did exactly the same. During the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the new commissions of archaeologists were going about the countries, and 90% of what was considered to be a monument was declared, oh, that's just natural. Just let it rot and disappear, erase the trails, because that's all natural. So
Yeah.
this try to erase of history is not limited to America, although in here is like screaming to us because it's still there. You can still find it, while in Europe much of it is destroyed. We didn't have the museums like Smithsonian hoarding it all, and we didn't have that. It's mostly in private collectors, and people don't open their collections to anybody.
Right. So this one, yeah, it's at the University of North Carolina. They won't allow study of it, and they won't even they won't even respond to a question about it. So the thing is, it's covered with cross-hatching, like all the other artifacts that we saw from Mount Pishka. This cross-hatching is a motif that's used as supporting evidence of a meaningful purpose. And
Globally.
it's globally used in real power symbols of tribes, and it's not something that would be fake, and there's no evidence that would say otherwise. This is something that's always been important in cultures around the world, and it's still related to clans. The issue is about whether it's related to the Riki map for the humped animal, and also Keen's identification, or if the symbol represents a camel or a llama, and if it's a tutelary or clan symbol. So the cross-hatching is important. Cross-hatching is a power bearer animal, like a camel-like animal with a personage whose full body lattice marks a protected power, a clan, or other than ordinary status. So the composite. This is a good picture of the object and how it looks with the cross hatching. The other artifacts that were found on site included here next to Pigeon River, where they had Garden Creek, they found boars. Boars are associated with being born from the myrrh tree, and myrrh, as we know, was used for incense burning, and myrrh is what they would worship around Christmas time. And they said the boar was born from the myrrh tree at Christmas time, and so that was related to the renewal of the seasons and going from Christmas or winter through this equal to the winter solstice, and that was Middle East culture. But the parallel is here in North Carolina, they find boars on these figurines, and they also find the myrrh tree. And so there's a possible link there that the cultures are connected.
And is this image the image that you
No,
have
this
of the
is
artwork?
this is an AI image.
Okay, that's what I was, because it's too perfect. The cross hatching
Yeah.
is so perfect. I was going to ask you, is that was.
But I have a
actually the
picture of the
artifact?
actual one. This is kind of the ones that show Keen's idea. And when Keen wrote about this in 1885, he said, "This is a figurine of a llama. The resemblance between this example and a common Peruvian llama is very striking," he said. And the cross hatching shown here just this shows as a power large the language or visual language of a power, protection, or spiritual authority, because they said cross hatching is a power symbol. So the next one though shows kind of more closely what it looks like in the actual image figure from the North Carolina catalog is shown here, and they have it labeled as a fake. And in the catalog, they listed it as that, and so I asked them, like, well, what evidence do you have for that? So they haven't responded, but the Ming comparison is, well, the Ming Dynasty, they used cross hatching on their figurines for tombs, and they also covered their figures in cross hatching throughout the 1400s. So there's a strong connection to Zhuangde period of the Ming Dynasty, where it was common to do this. And
So
if they're coming from China, they knew about llamas probably because they lived in that area where they lived.
the thing is, they will say, Mr. Vince, it is a fake because we determined it a fake many years ago, right? And you ask, so what testing was it done to it to claim that it is a fake? Well, we don't need to test anything. It's clearly a fake. It was determined so many years ago. So
Right. So that's why I asked them, is this based on their opinion from many years ago, or is there any testing? And so, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that they haven't tested it. They were just passing along the opinion of of Rao, and Rao had been the one that stated in the original article that it was fake.
well, I don't think it's a llama. I wouldn't say immediately that is a camel, but it doesn't look like a llama either. The neck is too long, it's too low for llamas. Llamas don't usually have that neck straight.
Yeah, and so it could be a composite animal, like a
Yeah.
multiple figures combined, and that would support the clan symbol motif, or a multiple spirit joined together. And so this is kind of the testing plan. If they would allow 3D scan or photogrammetry, microscopic tool marks, checking, or possibly looking at the mineralogy to identify.
The thing is, someone comes to a museum. Okay, the museum doesn't have the time, the staff, or the money to test all the pieces they have. And someone comes along and says, well, according to academic protocols, we would like to test some of these pieces. So any museum should say, well, that's great. We don't have to invest the time, the money, or the effort to get the results for these species. But no, it's like we won't allow anybody to test in it because they're fakes.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that someone's opinion from 1882 could dominate more than 150 years with no testing to back it up. But this is what his objection was. In 1882, he said he recognized the camel-like or old world animal imagery is difficult to reconcile with strictly pre-Columbian Pisca phase context. However, his conclusion that this necessarily indicates hooking is too narrow. By the 18th and 19th century, Old World animal knowledge could have entered the Cherokee and Western North Carolina context through enslaved Africans, Atlantic trade networks, missionaries, travelers, or intercultural households. Therefore, Old World imagery may indicate post-contact knowledge, but it does not by itself prove a deliberate forgery. The key unresolved question is, did the maker know Old World animals is not simply did the maker know old world animals, but when, by whom, and under what depositional circumstances was the object added to the cache?
Well, in the Spanish and the Portuguese were taking lots of horses on very small vessels. The Chinese would have enormously more bigger vessels than them. Maybe the people that are from North Africa, Phoenicians, or also had bigger boats and could take a camel, right?
Right.
So I don't see what's the problem here, because it's
Right. The problem is he didn't want to believe anyone lived here after Columbus arrived. That he said, I mean, the whole thing was manifest destiny. They had come in, they came to an empty land, they could conquer it freely and willfully without any impact. And they didn't want to admit people were here. But this is evidence that there were people here. And in fact, the context of someone arriving in the post-Columbian era and bringing in a camel is very likely. And, I agree they could have easily brought this with them on a boat. They brought in horses, they could bring in camels. So the fact that this appeared on maps in that area saying humped animals existed would be evidence that at least some of them lived there. And they were probably brought in post-Columbian or possibly in that era when the Cherokee or slaves lived there and were possibly making these figurines.
we
All the
know
way
as
up till the 1830s when the Cherokee were forcibly removed.
we know as a fact that even giraffes were taken from Africa to China in this period of exploration. They were taken to the middle of Europe, right? Because there
Right.
were novelties. People didn't know what they were. The rhinoceros, animals that people haven't seen before, will be taken in ships here and there just to be shown.
Right.
So,
But to call it a fake, it ignores all that and all the possibilities that it could be post-Columbian or from a traveling, trade route somehow brought into this country, and that's what we need to look
have you looked into Chinese art? Because they wrote and create art at the same time, like drawings. So they might be, if they call this place a site, a name, as you were saying, they might have images of the site itself on their art.
Yeah, and the Riki map, the Riki map itself is written in Chinese, the earliest map of North America, and it says humped animal in the area. But the other art that correlates, I have looked at the Smithsonian catalog, and I found very similar types of art that they have in the Ming Dynasty era that are crosshatched, very similar to this.
What you were going to say, Chris?
No, just that this is obviously, this seems to be true what I'm about to say, but that all of the records from the Ming fleets and the Ming, the whole Ming global, that those records were all literally destroyed. So this one map is, one of a very few things that survives. It was all destroyed, right, Vince?
Right.
Yeah.
The map, the map called the Riki map, which says humped animal on it, is one of the few, and it's one of the earliest, or the earliest map of North America. And these are the scenarios, resulting hypothesis. One is, if this is strictly pre-Columbian Pishka phase object, that's weakened unless the animal identification is symbolic, mistaken, or not actually old world. And then if it's a historic, native, or intercultural object before forced removal, that's plausible. And it would require a chain of custody or depositional evidence, something like the Chinese exploration, or somehow this animal got there. It would have had to have been brought there. And I think the evidence is clear that there's a possibility for that.
Well,
The African
I've
diaspora.
seen people presenting very good evidence for 1100 expedition of the Chinese into
Yeah.
the Americas. So,
Right.
The dates are pretty specific. It's that 1430s, 1420s, 1430s, and then whenever the Shang was and the other dynasties before, right?
Yes.
yeah, but the treasure ships, they start for a brief period. Well, we don't know how brief it was, but it has reports on around from 40 BC that could go way into a few hundred years BC for the first treasure ships. Then that emperor was run over, and the treasure ships were abandoned for many years, and then they reappear again in the 1100s, and then they reappear again in the 1400s, right before the Portuguese are coming in the opposite direction. So, but you were saying, Chris and Vince, you were saying that all of this was destroyed in China, or was destroyed elsewhere? Because the Chinese don't destroy their records, so that's why I'm asking.
No, I mean, a lot of records were destroyed in America by burning. I mean, they burnt down this
Yeah, but
this particular.
the Chinese would have
Okay.
copies, I'm sure. I'm not sure they were willing to share them, but they will have copies of everything.
Yeah, and I mean, this particular location here has evidence of many fires occurring in this earth lodge. So if there was evidence, it would have been burnt with the fire. And so the other possibilities are African diasporic or enslaved person knowledge. Possibly this was a reasonable alternative route for camels to get to America. Then the Rao's opinion was a 19th century collector market fake or later intrusive object. But he had no basis for that other than it's just different and it's an old world animal.
So you can put a vote of no confidence on a government. You can't do that to a museum.
Right. That's a good question. And so if we could, yeah, put a vote for no confidence. I mean, the site's already been claimed by NAGPRA, but they won't even acknowledge the artifact. And won't respond. They say they repatriated the artifacts from the site other than this one, which they call a fake because Rao said it was. And
Yeah, but they don't throw it away either. So they just keep it.
yeah,
on
so
the
they're keeping it
walls.
for some reason because they probably don't want anybody asking questions.
Well, we are at the episode 21. Do you have an idea how many hundreds of artifacts we've mentioned that are considered fake but still kept in the museum's basements? If they are fake, just throw them away, give them to somebody, right? Why keep them if they are fake? I don't. If they are fake, they have no value. They have no historical value. They have no religious value. They are not sacred elements because they're fake. So if they're
Right.
fake, why keep them? I don't understand that. Why keep them?
Yeah, and this is kind of a critique for Rao's opinion. Like he said first, the carvings were abnormal, unlike any known pre-Columbian carvings. Well, that's an argument from 19th century unfamiliarity. The archaeology of the southeast, Pishka, phase material, and steatite industries, symbolic carvings, and museum provenance controls were still developing. So, an object that was unfamiliar to Rao that can be unfamiliar to Rao without being fraudulent. Typological surprise is a reason for testing, not a verdict.
Yeah, exactly. Reason for testing.
And then the objects were pot stone or soapstone, and therefore he said they were easy to fabricate and age artificially. But this overgeneralizes. The later cataloging and evidence includes clay, pottery, fired ceramic, stone, pot stone, and even copper, like we talked about. The pot stone criticism cannot be applied to every object unless each specimen are mineralogically identified, which they haven't been. Soft pot stone, he said, could acquire an antique appearance. Well, that's a possibility, but not proved. The artificial aging that he claimed must be demonstrated by microscopic tool marks, abrasion, pigment, stratigraphy, residue chemistry, mineral alteration, or chain of custody. None of this has been done. The old world animals imply makers knew the old world animals, so the object must be fake. That knowledge of old world animals does not automatically prove a deliberate hoax. By the 18th century and early 19th century, knowledge could travel through enslaved Africans, free black communities, Cherokee and Euro-American households, trade, missions, soldiers, printed images, and oral accounts. Such imagery may not or may imply post-contact knowledge, but still permits historic period native African diasporic or other intercultural production before forced Cherokee removal. So camel-like imagery is incompatible with an indigenous site. The animal identification itself is uncertain. Candidate carvings that may include camel-like or llama-like or bison-like analogy or horse-like composite clans are actually not proof of fraud. And it's more of a strength than a weakness because they had multiple animals that were composed of different features of other animals. And because some of the objects were dubious, the corpus must be dismissed as a hoax, he says. This is a corpus level fallacy. So it's not true that if something was modern, that they can manufacture a replica. It doesn't mean all the others are fake. And the site context can be treated as suspect because the figurines are suspect. Well, that's conflating site level and object level authenticity. We now know that Garden Creek is a real Native American archaeological site and burial landscape. NAG proclaimed it. Even if some Valentine era figurines were modern, that would not make the site a hoax. And so, all these reasons, are good reasons to retest it.
This is just like the tablets. Oh, that one is fake. Okay, and that one is fake, and that one is fake. So more than 1,000 tablets from different places, found by different people in different circumstances. They're all fake. And marquetries, there are no marquetries, right? And because it's just illusion. And mounds are windfalls, which how much more can they deny, and for how much longer can they keep up with the denial of history, considering how much access to information we are having more and more? How is that sustainable? Can they maintain this gatekeeping of information for much longer? That's the thing.
Right. I don't think they can. It's like talking to a brick wall with them. They just won't respond. And that's been the case. They basically blacklist somebody and they won't respond. And this is another graph here that shows all of the different stone woodworking gouges and the age. Excuse me. So the quantity versus time is shown here, and the estimated and the locations used around the world. So you can see the gouges. Well, there's a large quantity in the Middle East. There's a large quantity in central South Texas, the Ontario area, and New England, Maine, Scotland. We were talking about gouges before, and so the woodworking culture of shipbuilding is what this supports. That apparently there was a lot of shipbuilding going on in Sudan and Central America, or all these places in North America and Scotland. And the time frame of this is around 5,000 to 4,000 BC for the majority of them. And then reported, well, the first one I wanted to show was the difference in comparison to his celt finds. Well, celts were found all over the world, but big quantities in Eastern North America, Mesoamerica, and the British Isles. And the timeline is about the same. 5,000 to 4,000 BC was the peak.
And in the middle of the Atlantic, you have to put a new dot in there because the Terceira Island is filled with them too.
Oh, Perseda Island? Wow.
Terceira Island, yes.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes.
I'd love to hear more about that.
You have an excellent segment that BBC didn't want to air, but it's on their YouTube. It's 18-minute long, and it shows this part of the island filled with dolmens and this columbaries, which are also archaic. And you have hundreds, if not thousands, of stone anchors that the Portuguese never used. And the thing is, although they have different shapes, the hole that the anchors have is 14 centimeters, all of them, in all of them, no matter how different they are. If they are found in the coast, in the water, they all have a hole of 14 centimeters in diameter. So it was the same culture that was going back and forward, passing through what is the best place to stop in the middle of the Atlantic, which is the Azores Islands. It's right on the stream, on the Amok current, so it will take you back home, either up to the UK or into the Strait of Gibraltar.
Wow. And here's a map of the steatite vessel manufacturing. And this one, it shows, well, Mount Pishka is right here in North Carolina. But Mount Pishka had about 170 steatite vessels, which is almost 3 times the total quantity of vessels found anywhere else in North America. Just the vessels in this spot equal all the other ones found in North America. And the timeline that these are made is shown here. So the peak was around 1,500, and the quantity was about 50 found at that time that were reliably dated. And so it's really interesting how this shows a comparison of where they're found. Like this is near Poverty Point, Louisiana, and up here, Delaware, Rhode Island. These green dots represent where they're found and the density. The quarries are shown in red here, where they quarried the steatite.
So
And so this
they
is
merge at the same time as the Copper Age ended.
Yes.
Or
Yeah,
the
the
Bronze
peak,
Age, if you want to
peak
call
right
it.
around the end of the Copper Age. That's right.
So it means that they have more time to do other things.
Well, I think it might have been correlated as well because steatite was found to be a great cooking vessel. Maybe they correlated it to a replacement for technology for copper. Because if they had used the copper for cooking, they might have gotten contamination. But that's just a theory, a thought, you know.
Yeah, but I think North American native people used copper in a ceremonial way. Have you found any cooking gear from that age that is copper? I don't
Yes.
know.
Yeah, I found there's one in Quebec that they found copper pots, like literally vessels made of copper,
But were they ceremonial or used for actual cooking? That's the
used for
question.
cooking. I mean, it looked like it was used for cooking because it had a copper ladle with it. It was found in archaeological context in Quebec. But here, this shows the quantity of figurines and vessels, 172 vessels that were made of steatite. So all of these are steatite, and then so the peak of all the steatite objects totaled 978 for Mount Pishka, and here's
978.
yeah.
All of them fake.
Well, I don't think so, but that's what Rao would have us believe. And look at this. This one's really interesting too. The Tanit form comparison. Well, Tanit was the Phoenician or Punic sign. Um, they were actually found in the Ohio Hopewell Mound Group, as well as North Carolina in Mount Pishka.
It looks like a Hank too.
And yeah, Ankh or Hank,
Yeah,
yeah,
Hank.
Phoenician sign. So, but these are actually from cataloged artifacts that were found by Warren Moorhead. These had been cataloged and were found in the Hopewell Mound Group in Ohio. And so there's a strong connection there to the Tanit called, symbol. And the one from Mount Pishka, I've got shown down here, it's the same triangular body with its round head and arms kind of like down, but they're not
Okay,
pointed directly out.
can you zoom that stone?
Yeah. Well, I've got a better picture of it, but
So it looks like a lady.
yeah. And then plummet finds, those are mostly from around 500 BC. Plummets were found in Cahokia in great abundance. These are actual photos that I took of the ones that my friend found together.
What would be the purpose of these?
I think they were for plumb bob, like they would determine a vertical line when they were using survey devices.
I see. So they would have a string attached to them?
Yes, usually they have a small, tiny groove around the top for tying to a string. So like a plumb bob.
Surveying then.
Yeah, I think it's for surveying.
Astronomy too.
Possibly, yeah, astronomy related, because they need to know the vertical line to track certain events. And then this article was written by Claassen about archaic dog burials. So she showed a picture or an image of where those are found. 246 dogs were buried in Kentucky, Green River, Kentucky, and these are the largest concentration of where the dog burials were found.
I'm sorry, but I have to ask. Are they actually ceremonial dog burials, or were they eating dog and putting the bones to a place?
Well, the ones that were buried with humans may have been ceremonial because they're buried with the respect and with the person.
Like burying with the horse or the dog. I understand that. Yes.
Yeah. So, but I asked Mrs. Claassen, what about the one that was found on the top of Monk's Mound? And she said, oh, I've never heard of that, but I assume it's Mississippian, like 900 AD, because that's what everything from Cahokia is from. And so once again, they were like presuming or assuming some date of something without knowing anything about it. And that's what the problem is with archaeology. They assume something because that's what they heard someone say.
Well, archaeology is an interpretative science, so it's based on data but they have to interpret the data, and that's what allows them this freedom to say real, fake, anomaly.
Yeah. Take a look at this one. The Shark's Tooth Club. I found a part of it at Cahokia Mountains, and the rest of it had been previously recovered back in 1956 by Gregory Perino. And so this was a Shark's Tooth Club found in the middle of North America. Well, how to get there? It's actually a Shark's Tooth Club that was made with a maple wood handle and a copper cap at the base of the handle.
I just want to say that when you say that you found this here and there, I just want to clarify that Vince participated in archaeological expeditions. He was not there digging by himself and finding things.
Right. No, this was an archaeological expedition, correct. And it was run by John Kelly, and it was a Boy Scout event where I had been helping out as a volunteer with the Boy Scouts to dig the remains from the Perino backfill. And the other Boy Scouts were there, and I was helping out with the dig, and this was at a depth of 23 centimeters in Mountain 34 backfill. And so apparently Gregor Perino had left it there in the backfill, or somehow sifted through it and had been left there. And
What is the date
and
for
John
this?
Kelly is the archaeologist. He wrote a report about it, and of course it was donated to the state, and it has been published as a important find. And he thanked me for finding it, and for congratulated me basically because this is a very rare find.
And 22 centimeters they would consider it according to the strata to be what age?
Well,
Because 22 centimeters is more than a palm. A palm is normally 22 centimeters.
right, it is. Um, it was believed to be about the base of the backfill. So where Gregory Perino was working, he was dumping his backfill, and that's where they had the sifting excavation going on, and this happened to be there.
So if it is a backfill, they can't determine the age by the strata
Right,
because it's disturbed soil.
right. So,
Foiled again.
well, this helps because we know the age of the shark's tooth clubs that are found around the world. And so there were shark's tooth clubs, and this shows where they were found and how old they are. These are the ones that we know or have an idea about their age from comparative excavations. And so there's 7,000 BP before present. There's one at Cahokia that we're talking about, and then there's 12 from Hawaii that were dated to 1400 to 1820. And then look at this: the Kiribati had AD 1840 to 1898. They made 124 of these in the 19th century. So that's a late production. A lot of these were being produced in the Gilbert Islands. And then this map shows cowrie shells. I've always been interested in cowrie shells because some are found in Serpent Mound, Great Lakes, Ojibwe, the Miches tradition, and also the Northern Plains. And this map shows the trade route they were used during the trades for currency. Major currency trade routes. So if they would get them from the Maldives and go all over from the Congo to Cairo to India, Burma, Thailand, all around 1430. See, so there was a lot of trade going on in the 1430s. And in 10 AD, there was a lot of trade as well. The Chinese were using these. This talks about in 1849.
I don't know how, because they didn't invent the boat until the 1500s.
Yeah, how did they trade if they didn't have a boat? Yeah. And then the Egyptians had these going in early graves that were from 2700 to 2300 BC. So, and how did they get over all the way over here to the Great Lakes? When these are not Great Lakes area native creatures. They don't live there. They live in the Maldives. And so somehow someone from the Maldives had to get all the way over here to the Great Lakes, into the northern plains, into Alabama, where they found 5 of them. And so that's a pretty good
Even
evidence that there
Carthage,
was
yeah.
trade.
Even Carthage, as Rick Osmond was saying last week, that they extinguish their shells. So where were they getting the shells from?
Yeah, that's where they come from, Maldives. It's the main location where these particular species live. And so, I mean, you can synthesize that they had to come from the South Pacific or Indian Ocean area. And then quantity versus time. Well, this is the documented time of cowrie trade, when they traded them, from 3000 BC, around 1000 to 1500 AD, and the quantity of documented context. So the peak was around 1000 to 1500 AD. And
Again, the end of the Bronze Age.
yeah, that's right. And then cross-hatching symbolism, really one of my favorite topics. This shows about the different sites and cultures that use cross-hatching. The Numani, the 4th degree chart of the Middle Wind, the sacred rattle figurines, Cahokia, Mount Pishka, in the Book of Wild, and the parallels. There's African, Oceanic, Asian, and European. These different cultures from Oceania, Asia, and Africa also use cross-hatching. And this is a symbol of power used across the world, from the Great Lakes, Ontario, and then also look in northern Australia. There's a group called the Arnhem, and they call it Yulnu Rark, the ancestral power of cross-hatching, which is present in their art. And so the selected samples, the timing goes from 1000 to all the way to 1999. I mean, these are modern examples from cross-hatching examples, and then from the 1800s, it was used as a symbol in the historic period as well.
No, you see cross-hatching in the very primitive phase in caves with 8, 9, 10,000 BC, sometimes even further than that, 13,000 BC. You see very simple cross-hatching being done. Some people say it's counting game or counting people, but it is cross-hatching.
Yeah, that's right. It is an ancient culture symbol as well. I don't think it's only from the 1400s on. I think they used it in ancient
Yeah,
cultures.
you find it in cave art, very
Yeah.
old cave art too.
But take a look at this. This is the Minty clan in northern Australia. So the Minty clans had these 7 clans. They had the sand, guana, ant, snake, dingo, crow, tree, and wallaroo. And so the cross-hatching they used it as Vark, Minty in the Arnhem land. This says the symbol for fine cross-hatching was used to identify clan identity and country, and they use it in ceremonies for body painting and ceremonial objects linked to law and ancestry. Song lines, they also said the fine cross-hatching can help express ancestral beings. Song lines and sacred narratives tied to place in the law and rites. Used it as depictions of the church panels and the sea rites paintings, and the spiritual power as well. And so the Yulnu in northeast Arnhem Land in Australia had the same symbol they found in Mount Pishka, North Carolina, and Cahokia, and all over these figurines. And so this is the published record about the the Minty. they had this social structure, different moieties and patrilineal plans. And they used it, said, during the 18th century up until 1907. Sometimes I think they attribute it to these late cultures because that's the first time it was written down by Europeans, but in fact, it had been in use for many, many thousands of years before then. Okay, so we looked at those. Go on to the next one here. So this is the interesting thing about the Mount Pishka figurines is the clan symbols. And I did a comparative ranking to determine the clan symbol overlap. The number one result was Muskogee Creek, were the best overall candidate, matching the clan symbols in the Mount Pishka site. Then Yuchi was the number two with a 90% overlap, and the Cherokee was number three, had a 78% overlap. The Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, actually had the highest overlap, but the reason why they were ranked number four is because of the distance. Geographically, they said it's weaker. And the Osage was number five. So the cross-hatching of Pishka marked sacred or power-bearing symbolism, and the parallels are Garden Creek. We talked about Arnhem Land in Australia and the broader Arnhem Land, but the evidence is that it strengthens the shrine or sacred object interpretation more than a single tribal identification. And so they're saying the winner is the Muskogee Yuchi Cherokee sphere for Mount Pishka artifacts. And this is a comparative example of the scorecard for the different tribal categories. So they compared the candidate, the animal clan overlap, the cross-hatching symbols, the geographic location and proximity, and the strengths of the different symbols. And then it ranked them with these being the top candidates and the strength of each candidate. So the Muskogee, Yuchi, Cherokee, and Anishinaabe. And then, so the top ranked candidates, this shows all the interpretive rankings. And so there's pretty good evidence here that Mount Pishka, but this is comparison of just the animal motifs plus the non-animal inventory, the 10 broad overlaps. It says the Anishinaabe, Ottawa, Potawatomi were ranked 95%, and then the Yuchi was 90, the Haudenosaunee Iroquois 85%, Tuscarora 85%. And then I think after that, then it figured in the distances. So this didn't consider distances at first. So according to this, if distances are not regarded, then the Anishinaabe was the highest ranking in comparison to Mount Pishka. And so this is the number of comparative symbols from Mount Pishka, the categories, and so it's just interesting to see also this is the comparison with all the clans in the world. I said, hey, run a comparison, show me all the clans in the world, how they relate. And according to this, the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, and this is disregarding distance, are the number one comparator, then the Yuchi, then the Iroquois, then the Tuscarora, the Muskogee is number 6, in the Northeast Coast Tlingit, and the Norse is number 8, then the Cherokee. So Cherokee is less similar than the Norse even, and it goes down from there. And then, so this is non-animal inventory summary. All of the different figurines that don't represent animals are shown here in the catalog, and the number of different vessels as well, with the shapes of each vessel. So as a non-animal and sacred clan symbol, the Muskogee Creek were the highest comparator, then the Cherokee, then the Ojibwe. And here's the Arnhem Land down here. They have a high the highest comparison of cross hatching. So they're the most similar with that type of trait or custom. And then the others down to the Shona. This was an interesting one. The Shona in Africa use some totem symbols as well that match. These few animal symbols are matching with power objects. And the Maori and Polynesian have a match as well. So Northwest Coast is number 6. I mean, these are really interesting comparisons that they had similar context and concepts of clans and those cultures. So the next area shows the cross hatching. This is the highest ranked symbols in Australia. They were most similar to the Yolning, the Rark, and the non-animal inventory profile here.
Is this any way related to the basket weaving?
It could be. The baskets. I mean, the baskets were missing or absent from the clans symbols, or the these were all stone objects, but it's possible that the basket weaving could have been from that particular type of culture or cross hatching as well. I don't know.
Because they were using ash bark, I think, to create, and other materials in the North America. Because in here they still do it with vine. That there's a particular kind of vine that I never seen in the States. When in the States they were doing it with tree bark, and they could do it linearly, but they do it in cross hatching. So that's why I was asking if it could be somewhat related. This piece is just awesome.
Yeah, this is amazing, isn't it? The Muskoke Sacred Star display. Excuse me. So what we have here is the 5-pointed star in the central stone form, and it's a sacred celestial marker of the Muskogee, and it's tied to an ancestral southeastern ceremonial order. So he's got the same 5-pointed star on his hat, and I thought that was appropriate. This is actual figurine from the site with the 5-pointed
Because
star.
of all of the memes, each time I see this image, I think I'm gonna see Trump. It's Trump's face on the image.
Well, so then I ran a comparison here showing the ones that didn't match. There's actually 8 figurines in the Mount Pishka evidence that are horses, white rhino, camels, or they have monkeys and capybara. So I first asked, what are those cultures that use those animals as their clan symbols? And these are the ones that they identified. A horse could be a clan symbol of the Mongolians or the Chinese, the Plains culture as well.
You see, there is reports, although this is debatable even in clans of Native Americans, but if you ask them about, did you have horses before 1500s, right? Some will say no, and that's not because they didn't have the horses. It's because they didn't call it a horse. They call it big dog. They were smaller than the European horses, right? And they didn't ride them, but they used them as animals of load, the same way the South Americans used the llama. But the thing is, there were, I think, 6 or 7 types of horses before the Younger Dryas, right? Some of them might be mingled, survived somehow, and they are smaller creatures. So like bigger than a big Dane, but smaller than a horse. And they call it the big dog. And so I don't know which one of these we can relate to the big dog or actually relate to the actual horse.
Yeah,
And the horse of the steppe of the Mongolians is also a very small horse.
Yeah, so this identifies the long distance routes that would have had to take to get across the ocean, or the coastal routes that would have gone along the regional coasts or rivers that they would take to get to the site, and where they came from. I mean, all these groups had to have been associated with the site because their animals were present.
Why do you have Mount Pishka in the middle of the?
Well, I think that just was where it ended up, but it's supposed to be over here, but it just kind of
Okay,
gets,
okay. I'm just clarifying that because
yeah.
AI does that things.
So in so in other words, then I ran in again a comparison against animism to find out which tribes have animism or animacy in their heritage or customs. Which ones were documented with that historically as a spirit power, living beings, sacred objects, sacred places, or ritual symbolism. And again, the Muskogee Creek came up as number 1, Yuchi number 2, and Cherokee number 3, and Anishinaabe number 4. Then it has Hopewell, Hopi, Pueblo, Northwest Coast, and Yolnu, and also the Polynesians and the Shona from Africa.
Well, if you go beyond 3000 BC, most of cultures were animistic.
Yeah, that's right. It's that animism was a belief that animals were, or everything had a spirit.
Everything, rocks, the sun, the stars, the moon, the
Pottery,
trees,
gold, cups.
land itself, everything.
Yeah.
You see, for instance, still today in Japan, for us, we break a cup or a plate and we throw it away. In Japan, it gains worth after it's broken. They put it together and they keep using it because now that piece has history. Right? And it's more uh, venerated and as something of worth after it's broken and it's cracked and it's put on the table with pride because it's a piece that now has history. So the difference in culture, we can regulate and try to interpret other cultures by our own lenses because we'll fail ultimately. And I think that's most of the problems with archaeology come from trying to look at things from our cultural perspective. We wouldn't understand them.
Right. So that's why I tried pulling the reading recommendations to try to understand what the best books are about these topics, how they compare. They recommended looking at these books. There's for the Muskogee, John Swanton, Myths and Tales of the Southeastern Indians, or Social Organization and Social Usages of Indian and Creek Confederacy. The James O'Donnell, the Southeast Indians, and the Green Corn Ceremony. So that's the strongest connection right there. And the Yuchi, he talks about histories before the removal era of the Yuchi, the ethnology of the Yuchi. The Cherokee talks about James Mooney, Myths of the Cherokee, the sacred formulas of the Cherokee. And there's one they call Rivers Held, the spiritual place in the lives of the Cherokee. And then the Anishinaabe, he says history of the Ojibwe people, the Mishomis book, and the Ojibwe heritage. Osage, The Invisible World by Francis LaFleche, and The Right of Chiefs. I've read all these. These are amazing. And
Is Ojibwe, Chris, is Ojibwe related to Ho-Chunk or not?
No, but did they say in that book, Vince, that the Ojibwe say that they came from Europe to here 40,000 years ago?
It doesn't say that, but they might have forgotten.
Maybe they just didn't know, but that's true what I just said.
Yeah.
40,000, is that, Chris?
From
40,000.
Europe.
So the Northwest Coast book, he talks about Bard Graduate Center copper. So this might be an interesting connection here with copper and connections to the clans. The Hopi tribe. And then y'all knew Arnhem Land, this is the Australian connections. They have art and aboriginal systems of knowledge, Journey of the Crocodile's Nest, Mandolin materials and Aboriginal materials. The Maori or Polynesian connections. Old World, there's a Trial of the Cannibal Dog, writings of the Matawama Maori, and the cultural Polynesian overview. And then the Shona. Apparently, the Shona were making steatite figurines as well. So
No, and
that,
from the Polynesian, we find a lot of similarities with their kipu. Is that the name? Because I can't remember the name right now.
yeah,
Yeah, we find lots of that in ancient sites in America. So you shown a few, and I'm looking at it, and I think that's like Polynesian record making.
right.
I mean, Vince, you've obviously, if this was in a court of law with a jury, it's pretty clear which if the other side was just somebody's opinion from 100 years ago versus your evidence. So you've obviously proven this, and that's kind of where it stands. It's like you want more evidence, but it's going to be almost impossible to get it. But you've proven it, so that's just an interesting state to be in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I think it's amazing and really interesting to be able to delve into this and solve it, and hopefully it'll lead to a formal acceptance of these artifacts from the museum, and they'll be saved for for the future.
Well, it's somehow all your hard work and excellent presentation, either in the slides or in the material that you research, reminds me of me taking a like this big dossier to the meetings of the people that wanted to vaccine my daughters, right? And I'm taking a dossier of evidence, and although it's all undeniable, they just don't want to look at it, right? And the end of the meeting, the question they make is exactly as the question they make at first. So you don't want your daughters to be vaccinated? So it's like you talk for 2 hours, you show documentation, you put the information in front of the people, and it's like they just can't look at it. It doesn't
What?
compute.
They're not true scientists, and science stopped during COVID. But for these archaeologists, they're either acting as a true scientist, like Vince is doing, or they're not a true scientist. It's just very simple.
That's true, Chris. That's absolutely true, and that's one of the things that Jim Shears, James Shears was saying all the time. That is, just use the scientific method.
Yeah.
Don't just tell me that I'm wrong or I'm right. Use the scientific method, and whatever comes out, it's the truth that we have to accept at that moment. But if it's just conjecture or protection of a dogma or untested materials, as Vance is showing to us, that, oh, it's false, it's false, it's false, but no one tested it. No one knows even what type of material it is. So,
They come up with an excuse for anything, and it's their brain operates so quickly. It's so subconscious with an excuse why something could, and they sometimes give an excuse, and you're like, are you for real? And it's like, yeah, they're for real. And then they won't go back on what they just said.
Right. It's a paradigm shift that would have to happen for them to change their mind, because their minds are made up.
well, they know what to quote and what to bring, right? And when you do the same, right, because the books that they are quoting have the same amount of importance or integrity as those that anybody can bring to show exactly the opposite, because we're talking about the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, right? But they just decide to just follow a narrative. It's like science trying to explain millions of years by what we observe in the present. And that's the norm in science today, is to everything has to be explained by things that we see in the present. So
Right. And so this is kind of a timeline of their dispute. So all the artifacts were found in 1879, 1880, and 1881, and they didn't even show up on site until 1883. But they had written these complaints about the finds in the interim. So the majority of the artifacts and the cache was already gone from the mound. All this was the finding and discovery of the artifacts. And then when the Smithsonian showed up in 1883 is when they changed the whole timeline, or the whole story. And this is the number of letters that were written back and forth through time. The peak here in 1883 shows the controversy from the Smithsonian. And so they had been discovering these back in 1879 when they found the artifacts and dug up the mounds. The mound was completely emptied out by 1881. And they found ashes, coals, burned clay, hearths. All these artifacts were extracted from the mounds. The copper artifacts, everything. They found bannerstone-like artifacts that were described like this. They had fluted ball bannerstones, winged butterfly bannerstones, dished perforated objects. They found these are all the bannerstone-related objects. They found spindles, stones like cup, board-shaped holes. They found quartz bowls, and they found blue clay bowls. And so this is the chronology of the Smithsonian from the interpretive exhibit at the Valentine. And they said, so the artifacts were from spring to May 1880, dug out of the mound. And then it wasn't until 1882 that they started communicating from the Smithsonian, and then showed up on site in 1883 and tried to say that these were fakes. And they responded, well, the corpus included ordinary artifacts and mound contents, not only images, but the things that they were complaining about were the images. The counterfeit attempts were treated as a contamination to sort, not as proof that every object was fake. The later strategy was witness statements, provenance, photographs, and object by object comparison. So Valentine and Osborne actually went to great extent to document the provenance, and they kept great records. They had 270 letters that were written, and this is a depiction of what they found in the mound. There were streaks of black and ash and red, alternating red and brown clay layers, 20 feet hard hearth with ash and coal and burnt bones, and 7 skeletons dated December 19th. And they documented hard rock and earth beneath these layers. And so it was stratified burning. There were clay basins and pots, mortuary association, and hearths and floors that were burned, and charred wood and food. These are all from their letters, and it gives a strong context for the finds. And this is a AI representation of the stone implements. They found bowls, axes, beads, pipes, dishes, perforated stones, weights, notched stones. There were crosshatched marks, burned context, carved figurines. The only thing that the Smithsonian disagreed with was the carved figurines, but everything else was okay. So that goes to show you they didn't think that natives could have made artwork. And I wanted to show that the Valentines actually went and talked to the natives about this. And in the letters, I found a really interesting authentication of these artifacts. And the Cherokee actually said these are rainmaking objects from a medicine man. And I'll bring that up here. Sorry, it's the next one. This one. No, it's the next one. Sorry.
You created
Yes.
too many?
Yeah, too many.
Or
Oh,
too
yeah.
few?
Quite a few. Sorry. Okay. This is the catalog of all the artifacts. So this basically shows every artifact that was found in the mound, and it currently still exists in the museum.
The mandate went out late 1800s. That mandate went everywhere. It said, squelch everything about the oceans being a highway. That mandate went far and wide.
Yeah, because the Spanish and the Portuguese could do it in nutshells, but the other cultures and other peoples couldn't do it before them. Well, the Neanderthals were doing 300 miles of ocean in 60 something BC, 60,000 BC, but people couldn't sail the oceans. So. And it's this. All of this archaeological studies, and this was told to me personally when I was with Jim Shears, and he was debating this with an academic. And he was saying, oh, but you know how archaeological excavations were done. They were not rigorous, we can't trust them, and so on and so forth. Fine. So why do you trust them when the dates match what you want?
Mhm.
If you don't trust them, then don't trust any of them. Do everything again. Test everything again. Right? But the thing is, they trust some of them, and then the 95% that the results contradict what they want, they just ignore them. Oh, it's because they were ill done. Right? Like the holy stones found in undisturbed soil under a structure, and they are still considered to be fake and placed. So,
But this is what I was talking about. The two chiefs, though, there's Chief Bushyhead and Chief Smith. Chief Bushyhead in 1880 spent a day with Valentine, and Chief Bushyhead said the images that were found were linked to medicine men and rain-making practices. So the importance is they suggest the Cherokee ceremonial interpretation for the carved images existed. And then over here, Chief Smith said he had correspondence tied with Indian Council, and Valentine exchanged information about the relics, mounds, and western North Carolina finds. Chief Smith also appears in the chain of custody for boxes of relics. And so the importance is it connects the investigation to Cherokee leadership and artifact logistics. And there's also a Smith mound attributed to Chief Smith. So that refers to evidence compared with McComb's mound. It adds archaeological context beyond the carved images. So Bushyhead contributes ritual meaning. Smith contributes Cherokee leadership context. Together, they make the fraud-only explanation too narrow and strengthen the broader Cherokee context of the Mount Pishka papers and the artifacts. And so that is different than what I've heard before. And it's just now revealed from the letters from Osborne and Valentine that there's two chiefs here that are actually authenticating these artifacts.
yeah, but they are considered to be trustable people because they are trying to say that they are part of their culture. Is that the problem?
I mean, it was overlooked, I guess, by history that they authenticated them in 1880, and the Smithsonian didn't even show up until 1883, but they had already been authenticated by chiefs of the Cherokee.
Well, Chris, any last thoughts?
No, Vincent. I didn't know if the cross-hatching could have anything to do with like possibly lozenges, which were like possibly latitude indicators. These rhombuses, maybe 45 degree, 30 degree, depending on the rhombus. But just didn't know if the cross-hatching might possibly represent some of them that are not the precise geometric. Distances go that way, or go this way or this way. I just didn't know if you had thought that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and that's a good possibility. And I looked into that a lot. And my thoughts are that squared hatching, yes, but diagonal cross hatching, I think squared hatching represents this world, like latitude and longitude. But if it's diagonal, I think it represents above that, like spiritual heavens above in the sky world, in the sky realm.
Cool.
I think the ones that have squared hatching, though, they do represent latitude and longitude. And if they're more densely packed, it means they've gone far. I mean, this is a powerful image, so they're talking about distance, travel, even through space or through the Earth, latitude, longitude. Just like the concept of travel or power, the distance of travel. And cross hatching, though, I think it also relates to canoeing. Like whenever you canoe, you make that crosshatch with the paddle. Every pass you're canoeing, you're making the X. So they see that, and the crosshatch represents moving or power to move them across the water. And so it's like this connection between passage of power, causing yourself to move, and traveling. So yeah, I mean, it's a very good possibility that they do correlate with latitude and longitude.
Very good. Thank you for that.
Longitude is another one. They tell us that they couldn't determine longitude. Latitude was easy, but they couldn't determine longitude. And that's completely fake, as Rick Osmond has demonstrated several times in this show. We could calculate longitude very easily with no problem at all. And in fact, the astrolabe that they want to put us as what they needed, plus the chronometer on the ship, is it's completely unnecessary. There are many other ways to calculate the time and calculate the position where they are, either on land or on sea. So again, lies. And most of the people that defend them, they are just ignorant, because these things are not taught. And they consider, well, if I was not taught, then it's because it's not true. Well, don't stop researching. Keep reading, keep researching, keep digging, and you'll find all of this. This is not hidden. You'll find all of it.
It's hard for people to believe that they've been lied to about, a major, huge thing. Certainly what your daughters, that was another thing. So it's hard for people. They don't want to hear it. And they just can't believe that some of these people, half my age, actually figured out that oceans were highways, not barriers. Like, they couldn't possibly be true. That would be a grand conspiracy of a global scale of every media outlet, every news channel. Everybody's in on it. Oh yeah, exactly.
Well, the thing is, people don't need to be in it, because there is this thing called cataclysms and catastrophes. Some of them are human caused, some of them are natural, and it slows the complete process down. Do you think that we will still know how to build computers in 1,000 years if now a catastrophe stopped all the development and remove all the capacity for us to use this kind of technology? We would look at it and think, oh, that must be ceremonial. All those dots in that silica board must be some kind of spiritual messaging that they encoded in these things. So it will be lost. And it has been lost many times and kept secret by some organizations. Some of them were natives Some of them were of different nature, but this knowledge was never lost, but it was removed from the public.
Hey, just one more thing is, Vince, the Nicholases were talking about the vacant quarter. I mean, supposedly there were so many people dead. Everybody's just dead on the ground. There's no time to bury anybody. So it's like, you know, a Cherokee chief that comes along in the future, does he for sure 100% know what went on at this place? That's a good question, I guess. Maybe he did. So
You have that example on Spirit Lake, that it's now called Devil's Lake. There are many stories to explain the battle that occurred there, but essentially they could all describe the forces of nature and the events that the natives did all in there after that point. So,
This was one of the interesting artifacts from Mount Pishka. It looks like a person riding a an object that's a sled, or possibly, if this had wheels, it could have been a chariot, a seat-like vehicle. So this one in particular, this one was found at Mount Pishka, and
yeah,
so the
but
question is
it could
about
have been
whether it
found
was
in Cataluyuk. From its the features that it has, or it could be the oldest totem that we know of made of wood. It also has those kind of features in his face. So this is a global representation of a human or a spirit. The oldest totem that exists made of wood that was found, it has exactly those kind of facial features. A
wow.
long nose.
What's it called again? Where?
Well, you look for the oldest wooden totem that we have record of. It's
Okay.
extremely old, and it has exactly that face. You can pull it
Wow.
up. It has exactly that face.
I'm gonna search it up. Yeah, that's amazing.
like he's looking up at an impact, like those Olmec jade pieces.
Also, it kind of makes me think that there was at certain point in the global world there was this international way of representing things that everybody would understand. Symbols that no matter where you come from, you reach to that point, you see that, you know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I can look for that tomorrow and send it to you. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be
I have
great.
papers on it. I have papers on it. I can send it.
Thank you, Vince, for teaching an amazing presentation.
As
Absolutely.
always, Vince is just
Thank you.
incredible. So
Vince, what upsets me the most is that they don't care about throwing dead people under the bus. That if it was their grandfather, I mean, to imagine if it was one of these young archaeologists that their grandfather was thrown under the bus for something they didn't do, and they don't care that they don't care about these dead people. So we're fighting for them, I guess.
Yeah, we're fighting for the truth and the heritage to be preserved. And yeah, you're right. They don't. It seems like they don't care. They they just they were out there. I mean, they're not preserving history by not allowing it to be studied.
They don't
absolutely.
care that the kids and the grandkids kill themselves or become alcoholics because their family name is destroyed. Like, they literally don't care. And they could restore the name with new evidence, but choose not to because their ego just can't let them do it. How
Yeah.
painful of a state to be in. How free we are. How lucky we are.
True, true. And with that bombshell, I think we've reached the end of another Roundtable Chronicles. We are 2 hours and 5 minutes at this point. Vince, you want to say some last words?
Just thank you all. Appreciate it. And Hope everyone has a good evening.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
Chris,
Great work, Vince. You are so inspiring to young people and middle-aged people and old people. You're a tremendous researcher and very inspiring. So thank you for teaching me.
Thank you.
absolutely.
Appreciate it.
We're very lucky to have you with us. So, thank you all that stay with us to the end, and I hope you have a very good weekend. Don't forget, tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, you'll find the Sweet Sunday News done by the Universe Unveiled podcast. So, thank you all, and until next week, a very fond farewell. Thank you.